was Stephen Hole's, not as famous, but interesting in being one of the early image building museums. The Kiasman Art Museum, which is in Helsinki, was designed by an American architect, which got a lot of flack, partly because, you know, why couldn't we have a Scandinavian architect to do it? What he designed is a building that suggested the sea, which Helsinki is on the sea, which suggested a wave, which also brought in as much light as possible in an area which gets dark early for a good part of the year, and is a lot of curves inside, and it's a very welcoming situation for art because he has floating walls that can be adjusted and that have also at least one in each of the galleries. One of the walls is at an off angle, which reminds you that you're in a space that's a little bit unconventional. Herzog and Nemeuren, who are also doing, you can't identify their projects. They're very varied and very thoughtful. They're Swiss architects. They are doing the restoration of some of the spaces at the Park Avenue Armory, just a couple of blocks away. And they're doing a middle ground between, they're not making it modern, but they're not restoring it 150% as it was. They're adapting a little bit. They were given the Tate Modern, which was a backside of an abandoned power station right across from, if you remember last year, St. Paul's Baroque architecture of the St. Paul's Cathedral is here. You cross the Millennium Bridge and you come to this. They have a total contrast. They've gutted the power station, and you have an enormous lobby which is given over to wildly adventurous artworks. Most of the time, well, when I've seen it, it's been one artwork. One time it was a gigantic sun-reflecting mirror, and people would lay down on the floor to see the reflection. Another time I was there, it was thousands, I think it was a couple of million tiny pumpkin, the size of pumpkin seeds in blue and white porcelain by the Chinese dissident artist Ai Weiwei. And I'm not sure what they were supposed to signify, but you could walk on them. And, you know, it's sort of like walking on tiny little pebbles. But they have this kind of experimental art space. The rest of it are very fine, you know, art galleries for modern art. And what they have done is they put the modern here, and the conventional, the more traditional art is on the regular Tate Museum on the other side of the Thames. Holschek Partnership did the Rose Space Center, which is an extension to the Museum of Natural History on Central Park West. This is 82nd Street. And this is a glass box with the Earth inside it. This is the planetarium. So this is telling you what you've got inside. And the shape is the shape you would have for a planetarium. Zaha Hadid's first building in America was the Contemporary Art Center. This was a smallish museum in Cincinnati. Now, you've heard of Cincinnati, but it's not as though its museum was famous. So what they did is, by hiring a major architecture to do innovative work in what was still her deconstructivist phase, they were getting themselves a lot of attention. And it's also apparently, I haven't been inside this, it's a congenial space for work, even though she's used the hallways to be more innovative architecturally, are leading you on to art display spaces like these squares, which are kind of enclosed boxes at the end of a corridor, are for one major piece of sculpture to set it off by itself. Santiago Calatrava is a Spanish engineer architect whose, some of his most famous work are bridges, and you can see that he knew how to design bridges. The Milwaukee Art Museum, again, an incident of hiring a world famous architect to bring an identity to a museum that maybe nobody ever heard of. This is the entrance. This is a kite with I don't remember what you call the wings. They are wings that alter according to adjust to the light. Now apparently they've had some trouble with their working properly, which is one of the problems of doing very innovative architecture if you haven't played around with it to begin with. But this has gotten a lot of attention for the museums. Inside are very workable art galleries. It's really the entrance hall and the gift shop that are the major statement, and the bridge, which is the approach to the museum. Calatrava is now, I'll show you later, working on the PATH station downtown at Ground Zero. He also has some of the more radical ideas that you should be aware of by innovative architects never get built. He proposed a building which was going to be down towards where South Street Seaport is, which were cubes stacked up but jagged. You know, one cube would be here and one here, and then another projecting in various directions. And it looked like it was going to be a wonderful building. The builder didn't get enough interest in it. I think they were trying to have enough people pre-buy the apartments. So that never got built. He had another building, there was something in Chicago that never got built. But you want to watch the work of somebody like this. Libeskind did the Denver Art Museum in also deconstructivist form. This was like the prow of the ship. Now, he isn't trying to make you nervous. He is trying to get attention and say, this is the modern wing of the museum. This is also one of several buildings, including a library across the street by Michael Graves, that call attention to, and I can't remember who did, the first wing of the art museum was also done by a major architect. So what they are doing is saying, we're an important modern art museum. We're going to have the exterior reflect that as well as the interior. And this has, actually I like this a lot. This has mixed reviews, but the interior spaces are geared to the art. The mixed reviews are for people who don't like the building. But it has been part of, because it's one of several buildings that you are, it's been part of what's the building of downtown Denver, which was apparently something of a wasteland. This is down at the Bowery, where if you've ever gone down to where there are lighting stores, or right near Chinatown in downtown Manhattan. I don't know what the cross street is, but the Bowery near Grand Street. This was a small museum that was located in an undistinguished building on Lower Broadway. You had to know there was a museum there. I mean, there weren't even big signs. Sana is a man and woman pair of Japanese architects. And what they did was clad the building like stacked up boxes. It's a semi-translucent shell, so that light comes into it through the shell. It is very avant-garde art that's exhibited here. The kind of thing that maybe is too avant-garde for the Whitney or the Guggenheim. And they have drawn attention to the museum because of the architecture. This is something that just opened. Bjarke Ingels, I'll show you something else of his. BIG is his firm, Bjarke Ingels, and I don't know what the G stands for. He's very hot. This Danish firm that up until a couple of years ago was really building mainly in and around Copenhagen. He had to build a museum, Danish maritime industry, up, this is Helsingør, which is where Hamlet's castle is. And he built a museum underground. This is in the shape of a ship. So it's evoking what the museum is about, and downtown it's also bringing light into the underground space. Called Himmelbau. This is a museum that I don't know what it's going to look like. Certainly the architectural world is looking at it. He has several different shapes put together under what looks like an exploded exterior. And it's going to be strange. These are